Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I'm Surabhi Sharma. Here are the top stories we are tracking for you on Wednesday, the 26th of June. US Secretary of State Pompeo vows close cooperation with India. Terrorists neutralize an encounter in India's Jammu and Kashmir. And all allies support US efforts for Afghan peace, says NATO chief. And now for all the details. US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on Wednesday met Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar in New Delhi to bolster Indo-US ties. The visit comes ahead of a meeting between US President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the sidelines of G20 summit in Japan this week.
US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on Wednesday met Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi to discuss several contentious issues and further deepen strategic partnership between two nations. His meeting comes ahead of a meeting between US President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the sidelines of G20 summit in Japan's Osaka this week. Pompeo, who arrived on a 3-day state visit to India, also met Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar and held detailed discussion on a number of bilateral and global issues including terrorism, trade relations and situation in the Gulf. Both the leaders later addressed a joint press conference during which Pompeo pledged close cooperation with India.
We didn't discuss the lifting of that. What we agreed we would do was we'd go work through the problem set. That we'd go, there are tariffs and counter-tariffs, and we said we're going to do our best to make sure that all the right people get in all the right places and work through these problem sets so that we can get out of this and get on with the business of growing each of our two economies.
For us, it is important that any global energy supplies remain predictable, that they remain affordable. And I think that's a concern to which Secretary Pompeo was certainly very, very receptive. I think he understands that this is today the world's 5th largest economy, which imports 85% of its energy, a large part of it from the Gulf. So I think he certainly gets, I guess I'm speaking for him, but I think looking at his face, he certainly gets what our interests are.
Earlier in the day, Pompeo also met India's National Security Advisor or NSA Ajit Doval and discussed various aspects of bilateral relationship. This is the first high-level engagement between India and US and comes at a time when both the countries have differences in several issues, including trade and the situation arising out of the US sanctions on buying oil from Iran.
A terrorist was gunned down by security forces in an encounter in Pulwama district of India's northern Jammu and Kashmir province on Wednesday. This came 3 days after 4 terrorists were neutralized in a similar gunfight in Shopian district of the province.
Security forces on Wednesday gunned down a terrorist in an encounter in Pulwama district of India's northern Jammu and Kashmir province. The encounter broke out after a coordinated search operation was launched by security forces in a forest area of Tral in Pulwama district. As the search operation was underway, the hiding terrorists fired at the search party. In the ensuing gunfight, 1 terrorist was killed, police said. This comes after Indian security forces killed 4 terrorists in a gunfight in Shopian district of India's Jammu and Kashmir on Sunday. India has long blamed neighbouring Pakistan of arming and infiltrating terrorists from across the border to mount attacks on Indian soil. Pakistan, however, denies the allegations.
Moving on, tourist footfall continues to decline in Pakistan-administered Kashmir due to apathy of the government. Locals blame tourism sector in the region has failed to realize its true potential under the illegal occupation of Pakistan. Tourists visiting Pakistan-administered Kashmir have urged the authorities to bring infrastructural development, saying it can increase tourism in the illegally occupied region. Best out with stunning sights of mountains and a variety of flora and fauna, Pakistan-administered Kashmir is a potential tourist destination. But locals blame that while Pakistan continues to exploit the natural resources, it does not allocate any funds for improving the social infrastructure in the backward region.
यहाँ पे हम लोगों ने रास्ते में कई सारे ऐसे स्प्रिंग्स देखे हैं, रास्ते में रिवर्स देखे हैं, माउंटेन्स देखी हैं। बड़ा टूरिज़म के हवाले से ये इलाका जो है तो इसको थोड़ा सा अगर इसमें डेवलपमेंट की जाए तो ये मज़ीद बेहतर यहाँ पे टूरिज़म को प्रमोट किया जा सकता है।
झेलम वैली में हम पहली दफ़ा आ रहे थे तो यहाँ आके बहुत अच्छा फील हुआ है। यहाँ पे बहुत घने जंगलात हैं और माउंटेनियस एरियाज़ हैं। टेम्परेचर यहाँ का बहुत ज़्यादा मुतज़िल है, आबो हवा भी बहुत ज़्यादा अच्छी है।
Pakistan, which illegally annexed Pakistan-administered Kashmir 6 decades ago, continues to deny basic amenities to the people. With no development and rights to live a dignified life, unemployment in the region has also surged, forcing the youth to do petty jobs for survival. In news from Afghanistan, the presidential elections in Afghanistan are scheduled to be held on September 28th. After the Supreme Court approved the extension of President Ashraf Ghani's tenure until the upcoming polls, rival candidates have once again challenged the legitimacy of the incumbent government.
Afghan President Ashraf Ghani's rival candidates for the upcoming polls on Tuesday once again challenged the legitimacy of the incumbent government. They reiterated the call for the establishment of an interim government in the country so that the elections that are scheduled to take place on September 28 are held in a free and transparent way. Ghani's election rivals, who now operate under the structure of the Council of Presidential Candidates, staged a big gathering in Kabul on Tuesday criticizing him.
حکومت نامشروع است، ظالم است و مفسد است. اگر این حکومت ادامه پیدا بکنه کارش به صورت غیر قانونی این انتخابات و صلح را در کشور با خطر روبرو ساخته و بی اتفاقی را در کشور بیشتر می سازد.
The presidential palace rejected the allegations as baseless and instead accused Ghani's rivals of violating the law by organizing election campaign ahead of the timeline. This comes after the Supreme Court of Afghanistan in April approved the extension of Ghani's tenure until the upcoming presidential elections. Meanwhile, the candidates suggest a caretaker government, which according to them will prevent the power gap.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has reiterated that all allies support ongoing US efforts for peace in Afghanistan. This comes as the next round of US-Taliban talks are scheduled to be held in Doha on June 29th.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said on Tuesday that all the members of the alliance are committed to supporting US efforts for peace in Afghanistan. Stoltenberg made the remarks while addressing a pre-ministerial press conference in Brussels. Pointing to the new round of US-Taliban talks which will kick off on June 29 in Doha, he said that all NATO members have been kept updated about the ongoing peace efforts by US Chief Negotiator, Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad.
While the security situation remains serious, we see a unique opportunity for peace. Allies fully support US efforts to reach a peaceful settlement in Afghanistan, and our continued commitment, both with forces and funding, is key to creating the conditions for peace.
Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met Afghan President Ashraf Ghani during an unannounced visit to Kabul on Tuesday to discuss the ongoing peace process and the security situation ahead of the Afghan presidential polls in September. Pompeo later expressed hope that there would be a peace deal with the Taliban before September 1.
Moving on to news from Nepal. Nepal's Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli skipped the question-answer session of the lower house of the parliament on Tuesday, raising the ire of lawmakers. Several lawmakers have long been complaining about Oli's nonchalant attitude towards the parliament. Several lawmakers in Nepal have long been complaining about Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli's nonchalant attitude towards the parliament. However, after Oli skipped the question-answer session of the House of Representatives or lower house of the Parliament, citing busy schedule on Tuesday, lawmakers were left riling with his absence. An opposition party lawmaker said that Prime Minister Oli is increasingly becoming negligent in the duties towards the Parliament. Oli was supposed to answer lawmakers' questions on allocation of next fiscal year's budget for the office of the Prime Minister and Council of Ministers and the National Planning Commission's Secretariat, among others. Nepal's Finance Minister Yuvraj Khativada answered questions raised by lawmakers in Oli's absence. Oli has not attended proceedings of the House since June 18th, when he was barred from speaking by the opposition Nepali Congress lawmakers. A car museum dedicated to former Indian racer and designer Sundaram Karivardhan was inaugurated earlier this week in India's southern Coimbatore city. The museum aims to give young engineers exposure to Karivardhan's designs and learn from them.
A car museum dedicated to former Formula racing driver and designer Sundaram Karivardhan was inaugurated in India's southern Coimbatore city earlier this week. Cars built and raced by Karivardhan were unveiled during the inauguration of a section of the museum in his memory. Sipani Dolphin, McDowell 1000 and Formula single-seater cars were among some of those on display.
Unveiling of a dedicated section towards the great man himself, the legendary S. Karivardhan. He's been instrumental in getting the Formula Maruti, which helped a generation of young drivers to get into the sport in India, like myself.
He was a genius, he was an engineer who invented, created and raced cars with passion. So the cars which you see here today are very unique and have got unique solutions inside. So the reason for putting these cars is for the young engineers, aspiring engineers who are now learning, going to college.
The museum aims to let young engineers get exposure to Karivardhan's designs and learn from them. Considered to be the pioneer of Indian motorsports, Karivardhan was killed in 1995 while flying a trainer aircraft. He was the designer of the open-wheel class Formula Maruti car.
A cultural and traditional music event was organized in India's Dudhpatri recently to attract scores of visitors to the hill station. Professional artists performed live at the event, which enthralled the audiences.
A first-of-its-kind cultural and traditional musical show was organized in Dudhpatri Hill Station of India's northern Jammu and Kashmir province recently. Professional artists at the open-air event gave live performances of Sufiana music and folk dance that enthralled scores of visitors. Paintings were also put on display during the event. The event aimed at promoting tourism and attracting visitors to less popular destination of Dudhpatri in Kashmir Valley was organized by Sikh Route Event Management Group in collaboration with Dudhpatri Development Authority.
बहुत अच्छा लगा हमें। ये जो दुधपत्री है ये धीरे धीरे डेवलप हो रही है और यहाँ बहुत मज़ा है। ये बाहर जो लोग इधर आते हैं ये बहुत अच्छी जगह है, तो हमें बहुत खुशी हुई यहाँ जो हमने परफॉर्मेंस दी। तो ये बहुत सुफियाना की परफॉर्मेंस दी या फोक थिएटर की परफॉर्मेंस यहाँ हुई।
बहुत अच्छा लगा सर, मुझे बहुत ही प्यारा लगा, मज़ा आया है, मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा है और मैं सेकंड बार यहाँ पर आई हूँ तो मुझे बहुत पसंद है यहाँ की जगह, अच्छे लगते हैं सारे लोग और ये प्रोग्राम भी मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा है।
While destinations like Gulmarg and Pahalgam in Kashmir Valley get plenty of tourists each year, Dudhpatri is yet to achieve the same feat. Majority of the people who visit the small hill station are Kashmiri locals only.
Well, that's all we have for you from South Asia this evening. Now our viewers can watch the show on southasianewsline.com. You can also visit us on facebook.com/SAsia Newsline and follow us on Twitter @SAsia Newsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We will see you same time tomorrow. Good night.